Good evening, Red. Thank you for joining us today. This is your Tuesday edition of the LFC Transfer Room. My name is Charlie. I'm your host for tonight, and I've got a wonderful, wonderful guest list that have joined me today. We've got Mahay. How are you, Mahay?
Really good. Had a great weekend. Not sure it was going to go the way after the first half against Wolves, but in the end,
It's
all
always,
good.
yeah. I mean, the main thing from that was it's just started your weekend on a wonderful note, didn't it? So, especially for for our American kind of guys that are here as well. So, starting off a 4 a.m. Bit of a slog, but it's a great way to start your weekend, isn't it? And then
Yep.
you see United lose, so it's great news as well.
And not only lose, but schooled, really.
Yeah. And how are you, Race? You doing good, man?
Yeah, just a little disappointed. Obviously, you're missing out on these Champions League nights. It's sad to see us not, playing. But we'll wait a couple more days, and it's our turn.
Yeah. Thursday nights they're going to be the special nights. No one really cares about it, not until we're there anyway.
Exactly.
And Nahum, how are you, my man?
Good, yeah. I suppose buzzing after the weekend. Nice little comeback. You love it. Just sort of I guess, yeah, ready for Thursday, I suppose. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, we can cover that in a short while, but the first match in our Europa League kind of group away to LASK, there's going to be a number of changes I would suspect to see. Players come back in, Virgil being one of them, try to get his match fitness back up after a couple of games, a few weeks. I know it's only been 2 games, but the last time they actually played for Liverpool was actually a few weeks ago now. So it'd be interesting to see who actually comes in. There's one potential kind of player that we actually could just lead into. Funny enough, we're going to talk about, and there's a number of things that we're going to be talking about. But before I do, just want to say thank you for joining us today. Just please like, subscribe, leave a comment. The thing that I'd like to do on my streams are we like to have a bit of an extra time in these sessions. So if you've got a question, I'll save them. We'll try to answer them and go through them really, really quickly at the end. As I said, bit of extra time if we've got time, if time allows. But yeah, we've got a jam-packed kind of agenda for today anyway. So we'll start off with the exciting news that came in today, literally just less than an hour ago. Ben Doak signing a new long-term deal with Liverpool. No details as to the length of the contract just as yet, or in terms of the salary, but no one's really bothered about that. I think the great thing is that we've kind of secured a really, really good, exciting talent to a long-term contract. He'll kind of learn and develop with Liverpool. Hopefully with more years with Klopp. So Mahay, I'll start with yourself. How exciting is that for Ben to kind of be established in the first team, getting that new long-term contract? What are your thoughts about that itself?
I think it was the logical next step for him because, in a way, we all knew he's exciting, but this season, I think, especially in preseason, he started off a lot better than me personally, at least, I was expecting. So, yeah, I think it's obviously great, to have him on a long-term deal now, show him a bit more. Show him he's appreciated, and obviously he's going to get a lot more minutes now, especially on Thursday. I believe he might get a start. So yeah, looking forward to seeing him. I'm hoping he'll develop for a while under Mo, especially.
Well, it may be the short term with Mo, but he's in the right place to develop. He's definitely got the right players around him. To feel like he can make a contribution. I think that's the main thing, isn't it, Race? His contribution for the remaining part of the season. There's still a lot of games to go. How do you think, seeing with the news come in, will he make that start on Thursday?
I'm not so certain about this coming Thursday, just because he's been, his minutes really haven't, he's played so much this season. He's just been a few cameo appearances off the bench. So I think to throw him in straight away into a starting lineup would be a little too soon. But with these games we've got coming up and, in close proximity, I would certainly expect him to be featured more. Maybe if you're up, big against LASK, you can take Salah off and get Doak a little more run in, and just to get him those minutes under his belt. And then maybe I would say, just looking at our current fixtures, that the League Cup game that we've got coming up next week, I think would kind of be my, spot to start him, and hopefully you can get some more minutes in him for these next 2 games that we have. Because we haven't seen much of Doak just because of, we haven't really needed, to dip into our bench too much, and Salah's, obviously been, good to start the season. So, but again, with the games coming up and the limited rest that we have, just more rotation is needed. So I would certainly expect him to see the field more in these next couple of weeks.
I think the interesting thing is the next 3 fixtures for Liverpool. They are tough. They can, and when I say fixtures, I'm talking about the league fixtures themselves. It could make or break our season. The old adage of you don't win a season so early, but you could lose it, couldn't you? You could lose a league with a few fixtures, going against us themselves. So we're just looking at the fixtures here. So we got West Ham on the weekend. Then got the EFL Cup that you just spoke about against Leicester City. That's on Wednesday. We have Spurs away next week, Saturday. And then we have Brighton away as well. So those 3 fixtures, if we're going to try to, make a go at this league, not just top 4, I think we can look to challenge Man City. Man City look really phenomenal at the moment, but we could certainly be there. Naeem, what are your thoughts there about resting the key men? I totally agree with what you're saying there, Race. Throwing in maybe too soon. But Naeem, do you believe there's something else that we could try to throw in? Could Doak actually start those games?
I think, yeah, it definitely could happen. I think a few seasons ago, if you remember, it was a slightly strange turn of events, 21-22, when we were challenging for the quadruple. If you think about the midfield we had and the attacking, the options we had overall, we didn't have unbelievable depth, but we were still playing to the highest level in every single competition. And that came from really important contributors, things like Takumi Minamino and Divock Origi. So when you have those sort of background players, it makes sense to be playing those as much as possible, sort of be putting them out there in favor of the sort of more incisive first team players, so that you can maintain this really good sort of width across all the competitions. So if it were me, I'd be putting Doak out there, not least because he needs a breakout season. And, he's sort of on the verge of that, even at 17, but also because it allows us to perform better, like you say, with the, contest with the likes of Man City without having to, batter Salah's legs every week, put Diaz and Nunez and Gakpo out there all the time. You can have sort of a rotation between our really deep attack, and Doak is a big part of that.
Yeah, and I think that I totally agree. I think the interesting thing is around that midfield as well. Suddenly, we've actually got options, just like what we were speaking about, a couple of years ago when we had Diaz come in, and he kind of transformed our season to, getting us really, really close to that quadruple, didn't it? But the midfield's always going to be interesting with possibly Gravenberch, Endo and Elliott possibly starting, those 3 players that haven't really featured. Obviously I haven't featured because one of them has only just come in through the door, but is it too much too soon for Doak? That's going to be a question. So I'll ask everyone in the chat as well, do you think Ben Doak should start, given kind of the contract news today, resting Salah ready for the big push, and kind of allow other players to get minutes in their legs? I think it's really, really important to do so. But we'll kind of stick with Ben Doak. Mai, what are your thoughts about his long-term prospects as well? Do you think he is the Salah replacement, or is it still a little bit too soon? Even though he's signed a new contract, Salah may be going end of this year. Is there still room for someone else to come in a little bit older, a little bit more experience, and we can go from there?
Talking about a Mo Salah replacement is quite the conversation to have, and especially talking about Ben Doak, I think it's such a big responsibility for him, and even for us to maybe consider him a Salah replacement is I think too much. He's still really young. I think he needs to kind of find his own way, maybe develop his own style, and maybe, I don't know, fit into a new system. I don't know what Jurgen wants to do maybe after in case Mo leaves. We can already see kind of a transition from the season with Mo and Firmino and Mane. So I think you can kind of maybe the right winger position won't be the same as it was up until now, in case Mo leaves. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just excited to see him play. I think, especially in preseason, he's been, so energetic. Always, when he came on, he was full of energy. He was pressing a lot. He was aggressive. He didn't mind going, one-on-ones versus experienced players, and that's why I kind of feel like I'm just excited to see him play, see him, develop his own style, and maybe go from there.
Yeah. Now, before coming to you, Race, Paul kind of raised a really good point. Ben's a little bit too young to be considered Salah replacement. So there is a video that I've put together about, well, it seems like it's going to be part one of a number of parts as to trying to identifying Salah's replacement. So the first part of that series is actually coming out on Friday, where I speak about a number of players that kind of had been identified as possible Salah replacements, Ben Doak being one of them. But yeah, to keep an eye out for that video. It'll be a really, really interesting one while we kind of get into the winter or next summer if Salah is to leave. But what one thing possibly there, Race, was with the left hand side and the number of players that we have there at our disposal. We're thinking about Luis Diaz, Jota can play there, Gapco can play there. Is there room to have more than one first teamer? Let's say they're good as each other. They can play and swap around. Is that really important for a squad rather than just kind of relying on one player? I know Salah's kind of exceptional in terms of his fitness. He's always available and he performs extremely well. He's been an absolute legend, hasn't he? But for us to develop to that next stage, do we need to start thinking about having more than one player in that one position?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've just been so fortunate to have a player like Salah just be available week in and week out. And so we've been able to basically build our team around, okay, that backup position, it doesn't really have to, we have to invest in that spot. But certainly, I think it would be a little naive to think that, we can just plug in another winger, whether it be, Doak or someone we buy, like just, they're going to be there week in, week out. We need to certainly invest in, potential solution, well, not replacement, but, because replacing Salah is obviously going to be an impossible task. But I think you can certainly, have Doak along with another player that you would bring in to fill that void, or at least attempt to fill that void. Certainly, it is a little premature to talk about Doak as a Salah replacement, because again, we still need to see him perform. Of course, he's looked bright when he's been on the field. He's very direct with the ball, just very attacking, and just like has all the makings of what could be a great player. So an exciting prospect for sure. So it's a little early, of course. We can get that answer this season, and of course the team rates him highly, obviously, with this this contract extension. So we'll have to wait and see there.
Yeah, and Jen, as always, thank you for joining us on the chat today. She's thrown it out there really early. Doak's going to become a legend at the club. He's certainly got the years ahead of him, being only 17. I remember when Michael Owen kind of broke through, and the excitement around him, Raheem Sterling as well, at that time as well, when he came through during the 12-13 season, how well he performed. So now I'll kind of just end on this last point with Doak. Do you think Doak has the capabilities? And I'm not talking about Salah, but I kind of reckon, and I picture Doak being very similar to Sterling. Do you think Doak has the capabilities to be as good as Raheem Sterling, certainly in those first few years?
Yeah, I think it all depends. I think these are some formative years for the player, so he seems to have fallen a little bit into the trap that a lot of young players have, where it's very fast, very flashy, and there's not very many times where there's an end product. So if you can find that final pass, you can get the positioning correct, so that he, like someone was saying earlier, he needs to find his own style. That's like, so Sterling over the years, despite being a really pacey dribbler, became he became almost a back post poacher in a way. He was always flying. Yeah, he was flying in at the rear post. So if Doak can find a way to make himself incisive in the same way that he can dribble in that manner. If he can find the goals, the assists, something like that. Him being right-footed is a bit of a problem in terms of finishing from the right wing like Salah does. But if he can make that style his own, then certainly he can be as good as Raheem Sterling. But it's all about how he sort of manipulates his, his style and his best attributes into a functional play style for the club.
Yeah, I think the thing with any player that's going to be replacing Salah, we're not going to get the numbers in terms of goals. I think it's pretty nigh on impossible to get someone that's actually going to be scoring the number of goals. What we need to try to do is find a player that can contribute to a wider split, the sharing of the goals that Salah kind of contributed, So if we kind of incorporate a proper number 9 kind of formation where we have that sole focus going into Nunes and Gakpo, they get the goals, and then we have the midfield coming in and scoring their goals as well. I think that's going to be the evolution for this next Liverpool side, and I think there's certainly players out there that can contribute to that. So what we'll do, we'll finish with Doak call. I think it's going to be massive for the player. I think, maybe he will play at some point on Thursday. But yeah, it'd be interesting. So what I want to do, just call out first, a little bit of housekeeping. There's been a bit of a new show that's just been introduced. So this is our American friends who kind of host this show very, very late on a UK time. But it's called Stars, Stripes and Anfield Nights. We'll be live at 9 p.m. EST, so Eastern Standard Time. It's kind of fantastic. It's new to the channel. Again, we're trying to introduce new things, get people kind of more excited about what we're trying to do on the channel itself. A lot more discussion, and it's our American cousins who kind of host that and lead that conversation. So if you're up and about in the UK, or if you're around in American time, please join. It'll be great to have you. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll move on to another exciting youngster as well. So someone that actually could come in and play in the Salah role. Kubo. He is a promising young player. Currently plays for Real Sociedad in Spain. You may remember him for being a very, very exciting player in the Real Madrid academy. A little bit more about him. He's only 22. He plays predominantly on the right wing, left-footed. And if you got a chance to see him on the weekend against Real Madrid, he was absolutely fantastic. If anything, I'd ask you just to kind of go back, catch some highlights. He scored a goal which was disallowed because of interference from an offside player in front of a goalkeeper. But if you just have a look at that goal, that kind of gives you Salah vibes. The 17-18 Salah that we saw first come in, scoring those massive amount of goals, cutting in from the right, and then shooting with his left outside the box. Really fantastic goal. I definitely recommend. Naeem, I'll actually start with you on the Kubo news. Have you kind of caught anything about Kubo? He's very much a player that's risen to prominence this year. He scored 3 in 5 league games. The second in the league in terms of goals, but he seems to kind of just shot up. The one thing I will just kind of add in, there is price obviously around the player. So the release clause, we believe, is 60 million euros. Real Madrid have 50% sell-on clause. So obviously, if we bid 60, 30 million goes to Real Madrid. However, they have a buyback clause as well for 30 million. So it'll be interesting when that comes in. But have you caught anything of him, Naeem?
Well, he's been sort of vaguely on my radar for a few years. I honestly didn't know he'd been fully sold to Real Sociedad. Yeah, I thought, because he was out on loan for a number of years. I think it was a few clubs. Real Sociedad was the most notable one. I didn't know he'd gone yet. What was it, 6.5 million? I think it was. I was reading earlier. I haven't caught any of his game time since then. Honestly, I've known about him for a good while now, especially sort of FIFA career mode move he is. But generally, I think looking him over, I think sort of today, it could be a good option. 22 years old, that's the sort of price or the age range you'd be looking at, especially considering we want to move towards a sort of, 23 to 26-year-old kind of bracket of talent, so that there's the experience and development necessary. like you say, the finance is a bit of a sore issue. But I think it could be a good move. It's a bit like Bakayoko. It is, right winger, left footed. And if we're sticking with a sort of a 4-3-3 false 9 kind of thing where there's a lot of focus on the wingers going forward and cutting in, then he could be a really good option.
Yeah, and I think kind of Paul, Linda, you've raised a few good points on the chat. Let me just bring one. Let's start off with this one. Is this Kubo guy a better prospect than Bakayoko? Who knows? This is the thing. So it's so early in the season. But Race, any kind of ideas what you think about that? Is because they've kind of risen to prominence over the summer. We may not know, certainly not Bakayoko. But do you think there's any kind of substance around the Kubo prospect being more than Bakayoko?
I think if you just look at, where Kubo playing in La Liga and having the Champions League this year, and Bakayoko, in the Dutch league, you can just maybe, you can just draw from there. So maybe it's hard to say who the better prospect is. I would say, I guess for me, from looking at both of the players, I think Kubo might be a little bit more of a talent for me. I think would be a really kind of exciting prospect. And you look at the release clause and the age. He really fits the player profile that you'd want to bring in. And if you you bring this guy in, as kind of a losing Salah, you get some of that funds back, so maybe it wouldn't hurt as much. And he just turned 22 this summer, so he'll still be 22 for this whole season. So he's still a relatively young. He is a young player. So had I think it was 9 goals with Sociedad in the last season. So already 3 this year. So that that 60 million release clause that could become a no brainer. I mean, and who knows if another club would want to trigger that? Not just us. So I think certainly it's something to keep an eye on. Again, we're gonna keep talking about Salah and his potential exit next summer. So targets and whatnot. So this would certainly if the player continues to progress, certainly on our radar.
Yeah. I think the thing that's just kind of coming out is Base Flowers is just all the Salah rumors have spawned all these kind of links that are coming in. There's so many links that are happening. We saw that in the summer, didn't we, Mahai, with the number of links with midfield. Every player under the sun was kind of linked with Liverpool. Is this just one of those situations where it's just a little bit of paper talk, it's just a little bit of news just to try to get more clicks? It's clickbait. Is that something that's happening here?
I feel like it is, and it'll probably only grow as we get closer to the summer. Because, it's complicated because we've had a lot of talk about Bakayoko, especially before the summer transfer window closed. So yeah, I don't know. I think we're gonna get linked with a lot of right wingers, and again, I think it depends on what we want from a right winger moving forward. If again, because I have to make this point every time, if Mo leaves in the summer, then do we want someone who's left-footed? Do we move to someone who's right-footed and maybe can whip in crosses? Because if so, then we have a player who can play there and who's great at it already in our squad, and he just won Player of the Month for us. But that that implies quite a few other transfers and movements in the starting 11, and not only. I've actually made this point quite a few times on a stream. I would, if in case Mo leaves, I would love to see Szoboszlai be moved into a right winger position. He's played there a lot for Hungary, and I think he's done well. But then again, it depends. Do we want someone who's left-footed? That's what Jurgen wants. Then we'll have to see. I think it's complicated because we're getting linked to a lot of youngsters, but then I think it's a bit of a gamble to get one of, let's say you get one of Kubo or Bakayoko, and then you have Doak, and that's your right hand side. I think if you rely on 2 players who are 22 or younger, then it is a bit of a gamble, especially for us if you want to challenge for the league again.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points in that one then. So if they're good enough, they're old enough. That's my kind of old adage. Regardless of age, just like with Doak, if he's good enough to play, he should get to games. Now, Dean Jason, you made an absolutely brilliant point. He's 22, and Kubo's already made over 200 senior appearances for his clubs, and then also playing a number of games for his country, which kind of brings on to another point, which is the endo factor. Could the captain of Japan speak to Kubo if get twist his ear a little bit, Agent Endo going in and speaking to the player, tell him how great the club is. It is a great club, obviously. There's room for him to come in and do some absolutely fabulous things themselves. But is there anything from anyone before we kind of move and close this one? No, to me, it's one of those. It's one of those where it's a little bit of clickbait. It's just one of those number of links. The favourite Liverpool line is we're monitoring the player. We'll continue to monitor the player, like just with everybody else that seems to be linked with the club at the moment. But yeah, just like what Jamie and always makes good points when he's joining us. Add Kubo to the list, the very, very long list. And then I've seen some Sancho shouts in the comments as well. Yeah, I wouldn't be taking a Manchester United player personally, but we could do that. We could do some business there. Okay. Before we move on, I just want to say thank you for joining. We've got 80 viewers today. A little bit quiet. If you can get the likes up, that'd be great. So subscribe, like the video, leave a comment. As I said, we'll be doing a bit of an extra time, so throw out some questions as well for us to get the guys kind of answering. It can be pretty much on any kind of football subject. We spoke about Everton the other day and their proposed takeover as well, and some of the possible negativity around that and the impacts it could have on them themselves. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next player, Hincapie, another player that seems to be linked with Liverpool for a number of months now. The links seem to be getting stronger, and it appears that Klopp has given the green light. How anyone can know that really when the transfer business at Liverpool is pretty quiet, considering the players that we did sign fairly recently. Race, I'll start with you with the Hincapie news. Klopp's given the green light. Is he a player that kind of excites you with a valuation? I think recently I saw 48 million for the player. Left-footed, can play at left back, can obviously play in the left sided of centre defence. So that long-term Virgil van Dijk replacement, is he a player that kind of excites you?
Yeah, I think any center defense type of move that we make is certainly a welcome one. And I've said this before about I think a January move for any defender is a real possibility, especially when we're kind of in this evaluation mode. Well, more with Joe Gomez, but Matip, I think it's already known he's going to leave at the end of the season. But Joe Gomez, I think we're kind of all it's kind of shaky with him sometimes. So I think bringing in a center defender would be a right move in January, and I think Hincapie would certainly fit the mold. Again, another younger player, he said left-footed, left-sided, so that fits a need for us. It makes a lot of sense for a move like this. It's not a too expensive of a deal. If we've been linked with them for a while, I hope that these links are continue, and that means there's some talking going on and whatnot. Certainly a good move to make, especially since our center back depth has already been tested this season. We didn't even hit the first international break, so it's if with games, especially, we know how busy it gets the second half of the season in January and whatnot. So certainly it would be a good signing to bring in.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good. Nahum, I'll come to you with this one. So we saw the Kwanzaa come in on the weekend and did a really good job, considering it's away to Wolves, who's never going to be easy. It's never going to be an easy game for any player to come in and make their league debut. Do you fear that Kwanzaa's time would be held up, his ability to kind of focus and develop into a top class centre back? And it's just another example of a player kind of being left aside because we find a new fancy toy. Is that right for us to do, or should we still go ahead and get a quality player to come in and hit the ground running?
I think it's, I don't know, it's a hard one. You never want to see a good youth talent quashed under the boot of sort of a established talent that you've brought in, but I don't think that's the case. I think sort of in Klopp's Liverpool, I think if you're in, you're good in the eyes of the manager, you'll find a way onto the pitch. It's a situation where Kwanzaa's gaining the trust of Klopp, I think, very quickly, and the trust of the fans really quickly. He came on, like you say, Wolves away, bossed the defence a lot of it. Some, maybe some sort of mistakes from, born of his youth, but overall looked a really assured defender. And look, I don't think there's any. I don't think that there's any sort of suggestion that we've got the best defensive depth at the back. So even with Hincapie, there's an argument to be said that there'll never be, there'll never be too many centre backs at Liverpool Football Club. So if Kwanzaa, stays as he is, if he keeps as he's going, even with Hincapie being brought in, I don't think he's in any danger of sort of stagnating on the bench. I think he'd be fine. But Hincapie is a very necessary part of depth. It's unfortunately centre-backs and defenders in general are where leagues and titles are won. It's just unfortunately how it is. You look at people like Bayern who've bought a centre-back every single year for the past 5 years now, and it's just total domination on their front. It's just necessary, and he'll find his way onto the pitch. I've got no doubt.
Yeah, and then there is also the factor of Konate, who would be our first choice partner for Virgil. His injury issues does kind of raise an issue with what we're trying to do. We can't kind of rely on Konate right now. As good a player as he is, he has his injury records. He's already kind of had an injury so far this season. Do you think having someone like Hincapie come in, who would be that bridge between Virgil, Konate, and then Matip and Gomez? Because personally, I think the gap between the pair I've just spoken about is too great for us to kind of sustain a challenge for any titles, for any trophies that we're looking to go for. But do you think Hincapie could come in and Virgil move to the right hand side of the centre back, giving us more options if he's available in that respect?
I mean, to be honest, I'm kind of surprised not surprised. I was hoping we would sign a center back in the summer. I think we've talked about it pretty much all summer on these streams. And we've been hoping we would sign one, but then again, with our transfer policy, you never know. It's obvious that we need one, and we needed one in the summer as well. I kind of understood that maybe not buying a center back was more of a decision of on Jurgen, because he started to play Kwanzaa quite a lot. When against the moment I saw Kwanzaa getting ready to come on against Newcastle, I just thought, yeah, that's it. We're not buying a center back. Probably that's it. And especially with him starting against Wolves. Yeah, I don't know. It's complicated because we've had this conversation quite a few times on streams and on our chat as well. I remember I had this quite kind of conversation with James. Me personally, I don't really think that we can just live off the memories with Gomez and Matip, with them winning the Premier League and the Champions League, because that's happened a few years back, like 3 or 4 seasons ago. And although they are obviously quality, and they were quality at that time, I think with Matip you could see a downgrade, and with Gomez it's gotten gradually worse, to the point where you just don't know what Joe Gomez you get when he steps onto the pitch. Do you get the Joe Gomez that played at right back against City last season? Do you get the Joe Gomez that played against Wolves this weekend? You just never know. And I think that, me personally, I never really thought we could rely on them. But if the transfer window ended and we didn't get anyone, then fair enough. I guess you kind of move from there. Honestly, I don't think we get another center back in January.
No, there may be other kind of players that we've got focus on, Andre being one of them. But we've got a special guest on the chat. John W. Henry has joined us and is asking a question there about Hincapie. How good is he? He doesn't seem to be starting for Leverkusen. I think that's quite easily answered. He had a suspension at the start of the season, so he missed the first 3 games, and he only played 1 minute against Bayern Munich. So yeah, he'll probably be back into the starting lineup from their next game. But John, if you've got the money, yeah, get the wallet out, mate. Splash the cash, because we definitely need to get another centre back and another midfielder in. Great. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to just shout out there. So Jay, yeah, 25 likes. If we can get up to 40, that'd be great. I know it's a Tuesday. There's a little bit of Champions League football obviously on tonight. So yeah, if you can, if you're watching, just give us a like. It helps out the channel so much. Okay, so we're going to be coming to our dreaded chat for today. Salah is likely to leave. Again, there's going to be more. There's been further reports about the Saudi Arabian Pro League coming in for Salah at some point in the near future. I've done a video again. I've already kind of mentioned on tonight's stream. There's a video coming out on Friday about potential replacements. But before we start talking about replacements, let's talk about the valuation, when they're likely to come in. Race, I'll come to you there. How much do you think Salah's worth right now?
It's kind of an interesting question, because on one hand you have what kind of Saudi Arabia would value him at, and then kind of what the rest of the world would value him. Because they'll obviously overpay for him. What the bids that came in from this summer, were they obviously north of 100? What 150?
150.
I can't quite remember.
Supposedly 200 came in.
Yeah,
very late, but it was never confirmed.
Yeah, so if that's kind of what's the rumored price tag, I wonder if it could get to that same heights again. But then again, if it's kind of known that Salah is leaving, just how much leverage do we have in a move like that? Because it's maybe with Saudi Arabia it's different, just because they'll splash the cash on anyone just to get anyone. I tend to think he's still maybe got that. Again, he's such a reliable player, week in, week out. He has no signs of slowing down. He's of utmost fitness. He takes care of himself. I reckon kind of a little more than what Harry Kane went for this summer. I think Salah would be worth more than that. Maybe around the same price. I think we could certainly just get a bag for him for sure. And if it's Saudi Arabia we sell him to and get more money that way, that would certainly be a welcome price tag. But of course, I mean, to us he's priceless, because he's just what he's meant to this club, and what he's meant for us has been immense. And if we are gonna look to move on from him, or if that's just kind of how it ends, I think next summer obviously you got to look to cash out, because we really haven't cashed out on any players. I mean, I remember seeing the list of how many guys we've left go for free. I think specifically the Nat Phillips one, just to talk about that, like that, how we didn't get any money for him and sell him off when we could have is maddening. And now we're just going to let him go. Like, we need to cash in on these players at some point. It's in this case, it sucks, because Salah's, he's not slowing down. He's still a very, very good player. So to kind of cash out on player, it's not what we've done. But I think in this unique circumstance, with Saudi Arabia coming to offer a boatloads of money, I think you certainly have to entertain it, if not, pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, I mean, Flowers has just thrown out a number there. I'll ask the chat as well. Do you agree with that valuation, 200 minimum for a player that is still, playing at a very, very top level of Premier League football? We're not just talking about, a lesser league, and that's no disrespect to anyone else, but he's still performing at such a high level, still scoring goals. He seems like he's adapted his game to be a bit more of a playmaker. Over the summer, you can see from what should have been 3 assists for the weekend, but at least 2, and had a really heavy, a helping hand in the 3rd goal against Wolves on the weekend. But Naeem, do you agree with that figure, 200 million? That kind of transforms Liverpool. If we had that money come in, like the continuum money, I'm sure that actually we'd say to Klopp, here it is, transform the team into that next level to become from a good to a great team.
Yeah, it's very Coutinho, isn't it? I think 200 million's a bit steep, and I don't think they'll be offering that next year. I think it will be closer to sort of 100 million, but even then, I think we'd be obligated to take that money. I think, unfortunately, it might be a situation where we end up missing out on some of the sort of the brilliance of Salah's twilight years, a bit like sort of selling him on, because obviously Messi is, you hate to compare anyone to Messi, but Messi in the twilight of his career has done some amazing things in Europe. He was among the best goal contributions in a single season, even when he was 34, 35. So that could easily be Salah until the age of 38, sort of thing. He takes care of himself so well. He's constantly available. I just don't see him slowing down until the very sort of late 30 years. But 100 million is sort of what I think they'd be offering close to. And like I said, we'd be obligated to take that. It would transform Liverpool. There's a lot of inflation in the market, unfortunately, so it wouldn't get as far as it would with the Coutinho money, even though we didn't spend on that many players. But I think it would be great to have that cash injection. It might be the better trade than keeping Salah, but I would definitely not be crying my eyes out if Salah ended up staying.
So we did reject a bid for 150. I know it's very late into the transfer window, and that was the justification, wasn't it, from reports that we had. Mahdi, would you expect at least 150? Do you think 100 million for a player that would be the crown jewel in a Arabian, Muslim kind of league themselves, so having the biggest player, the biggest kind of Muslim player to be representing the league? Do you think we should be thinking it's got to be 150? It's got to be more than that, 175 to 200 million?
I think it's going to be difficult asking that for a player who's, in his final year and is going to be, 32 now next season. Yeah, I don't know. More like, I think if we get 120, that's probably the most we can get. Maybe even that with add-ons. I don't know. So we'll see. Yeah, John Henry agrees with me. That's good to see. So, maybe
push
we
the
can
boat out,
actually
John.
spend
Push
some
the
of that.
boat out. Get a little bit more, mate. Get it to 140, 150, then we're laughing.
Yeah, and I don't even know. With Mo, I think it's complicated because he's, as Ray said, I think he's so consistent, and he's been so consistent since he's been here, and also he's really important to our dressing room. I think with Szoboszlai's comments a few days back, I think kind of show that, and I don't know. I think it's something that's like you can even comprehend seeing Liverpool without Salah, but then it was also kind of the same without Bobby and then Mane as well. So it just happens.
I mean, I go back to I've supported Liverpool all my life. I'm 40 next year, so I've seen some great players leave. I was heartbroken when Torres left. I was heartbroken when Fowler left. The way that he did, came back. The thing is, your heroes will remain your heroes, but unfortunately, your heroes need to move on. They can't play forever. Salah's just exactly one of those players themselves. So we need to try to get over the fact that he is going. I think a lot of the Liverpool fans are accepting of Mo moving on. We just need to get the right money for him because he's such a good player, considering how good he is, how well he looks after himself, and then comparing him to Lewandowski. He's 35 and still playing for Barcelona in the number 9 position, so he's good enough to make the grade at any level. I saw in the comments already today, just now, about is Salah really willing to kind of drop levels? We've seen some of the actions from the Saudi League. Some of the goals that Neymar scored or set up since he's been there, just kind of a bit of a joke in terms of the effort needed. But money talks, doesn't it? So just want to kind of remind everybody about the Star Stripes and Anfield Nights. So the new show that's happening tonight, early hours in UK time, but 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please, if you can, if you're going to be around, late nights. in the UK, just give it a watch. Our cousins in the US are hosting that show, and it's always going to be a good one. Okay, so we're going to come to the last of our topics before we get into injury time. Extra time. In extra time, please just throw out some questions now, and I'll save those questions. There's been a couple that I've seen that we could cover off before we close off tonight. But I just want to talk about a summer signing that's come in, has hit the ground running, and seems to have captured the hearts of a lot of Liverpool fans, and that's Dominic Szoboszlai. So Dominic's won the Player of the Month today after an outstanding start to his Anfield career, a brilliant goal on the weekend against Villa. Running into the ground on every game. The Newcastle game kind of sticks out. His performance against Wolves as well on the weekend, where we started off so poorly, but then ended really strongly himself. But Naeem, how impressed have you been with Dominic so far?
I think, like many of us, I've fallen in love with him in the sort of brief spell we've had him so far. I can't imagine a more deserved Player of the Month, to be honest. The last game, you could say there was a little bit of drop-off by his standards, but it clearly wasn't very noticeable because the shirt sales tell a different story. Even with that drop-off, it's a world-class performance. He, like you say, running himself into the ground, he clocked what would have been the second fastest speed sprinting last season, just under Kyle Walker, and I think that was on the return to make a tackle in his own box or something. He's truly everywhere on the pitch. I think he is, at 22, one of the most robust talents I've ever had the pleasure of coming across, and he plays for Liverpool. It's brilliant. I can't imagine this will be his only Player of the Month, and I can't imagine it'll be only Standard Chartered Player of the Month for him. I think the Premier League are more than likely to clock onto this guy at some point, and maybe a few more screamers, and he'll get it.
Yeah. And you mentioned about the shirt sales. So the full list is that we've seen for shirt sales so far this season has been Szoboszlai, number 8. His shirt number 8, obviously. So he's number 1. Then Mo, McAllister's number 3. Trent comes in number 4. Darwin Núñez is 5th. Luis Diaz 6th. Alisson Becker, Virgil van Dijk, Cody Gakpo, and Andy Robertson make up the remaining list. But it just shows how much of an impression he's made on the club themselves, their race, how he speaks so well in terms of his interviews post match, the odd interview that he's throwing out there. Do you think he has the making? And I've already kind of maybe foolishly comparing him to Steven Gerrard, in his early days, but he has the capabilities to reach a level to be kind of so influential. Do you think he has that within his game to be as good as Steven Gerrard, or be in that kind of conversation themselves?
I certainly, I think so. And of course, you look at just how mature of a player he is. Of course, being the captain for his country already at such a young age, and of course, they're looking to break into the Euros next summer, and that could be a really, kind of a breakout. If Szoboszlai continues this and has a great season and great Euros next summer, we could be talking about just one of the best straight up midfielders, in the league and on the planet. I mean, it's just I just get so happy just thinking about him being in our team, and all these games we've had so far. The number one thing that I'm looking forward to in these games is just watching Szoboszlai and just watching him just command our midfield. That goal that he had against was it Villa? It's just absolutely beautiful. It's just so nice to see us, taking back the midfield again after it was just so dead last year, and having just the polar opposite of that, and someone who is just young and hungry and driving forward and tracks back too. I mean, I think that was the most impressive thing. One of the most impressive things, him tracking back on that Wolves goal to stop that. I just couldn't believe that. I didn't know he was that fast of a player, but I mean, man, that was.
I didn't realize at all.
Yeah,
how quick
that was
quick
like.
He was.
I mean, he arguably saved a goal there. So, it's just such a joy to have this guy, and of course, being the number 8, being the number 8 for Liverpool, of course, with following up Gerrard, that's just going to mean so much more. I'm certainly looking to get his jersey as well. I need to get with my friends, and we'll do a big kit order and whatnot. He's gonna be my next jersey for sure. So yeah, I think once, we haven't really seen, well, of course he scored the one goal, but once we see him, no doubt he'll bang in a few more this season. Certainly, with lesser competition now in the Europa League, let's see him down, man. I mean, I'm just ready just for a fantastic season for him. I'm just so excited.
Yeah, I agree. Mahay, I'm just going to come to you about Dominic as well. So how impressed are you that Klopp has already put so much trust into him, and also McAllister? Now, the thing with McAllister on the weekend, he flown back from Bolivia, had hundreds of air miles thrown in at him. Being in the country 24 hours before making that the starting lineup for the Wolves away game. But how impressed do you think are you with Klopp's admiration for Dominic Szoboszlai already? Do you think he can possibly become captain, vice captain for the club in years to come?
When we got him, I was really excited, and for more reasons, more than one reason. First of all, I thought that finally we've shown a bit of ambition. We got him, paid the full price, the release clause, and got him straight away. And I think I always knew he was world class, from watching him in the Bundesliga and for Hungary as well. But what sticks out to me is that he didn't really need time to adapt. Like, he just came in and hit the ground running. Like, that's what amazes me. I thought, coming into the Premier League, being so physical and, fast paced, you'd need a few months, maybe even a season to adapt. Like, we've seen that with Darwin Núñez, for example. Okay, different situations, but
we're thinking about Fabinho. So when Fabinho came in, didn't he? He didn't start for months, and then he's gradually kind of introduced to the team. But yeah, totally agree.
And about the captaincy thing, I mean, if you look at him being the captain of his national side, then obviously you do see that he has that leader thing in him, and especially on the pitch, he seems so commanding, in control. I think he is that type of a player, and the number on his back, you'd think that maybe it puts some pressure on him, but he just seems to respond so well. Like, he doesn't have any problem with it. So yeah, I'm honestly just really excited to see him play. I think adding to what Ray said, obviously the Euros coming in next summer as well. I think we've gotten someone at the right time in Szoboszlai, because if he would have stayed in at Leipzig, and maybe even for the next summer, then he would have been a lot more expensive, and a lot more teams would have went in for him.
Yeah. So now I think that's a really, really good point there, Mahai, so we got him for 60 million. That was his release clause up to that point, wasn't it? So I think it was July the 1st when that contract, that clause actually ended, and then essentially was just free for all. How much do you think Szoboszlai would have been worth had we not secured him at 60 million? Considering the market that we have, Caicedo, Rice all going for 100 million, does he fall in between that 60 million to 100 million bracket?
I think so, yeah. I don't think he would have gone beyond 100 million. But for the age he is, the talent he has, and sort of like his leadership qualities, I think he probably would have gone for around what Kai Havertz went, which is the biggest injustice of it all. The fact that Kai Havertz went for that amount of money, it's 75 million. It's a shame to say it, but I think he probably would have been just there about, or maybe sort of pushing into the 80s. But fundamentally, he would have been a hell of a lot more expensive than we got him for. But is what it is.
Yeah. Race, what do you think? Do you think that 75 million mark is right? A little bit more, depending?
I think you can maybe push it to 80 million. I think that's kind of what I would maybe cap out as. It's go in the middle there between 60 and 100. Like you said, it's the player profile, the age, the experience in the Bundesliga, playing at a top club. I certainly think it wouldn't have been this cheap. And now, it's curious just to think what he would go for after seeing him, for these first few games, what his price tag would be.
Yeah, I think it's just exciting to see how he develops over the remaining part of the season. Obviously, he just needs to remain fit, healthy, and this is why we need that big squad, because we don't want to be running him into the ground, because that once you do that, fatigue comes in and then injuries become part of it, don't they? So we need to be careful about who we play, and that's why when it comes to Thursday night, it could be an interesting one. Let me ask you guys, and ask the chat as well. Who would be your starting three midfielders for the game? I'll throw mine out, and while you're thinking, but I'm thinking Gravenberch, Endo, and Elliot would be my three to start away against LASK. What do you think, Mahay?
I think I'd agree with you, actually. Yeah, I think so. I think I was thinking maybe Jones, but he did play quite a lot, so I think get some game time for Elliot. I think he deserves it just for it after, just for his reaction after the goal against Wolves. I throw him in, give him a start, and with Endo as well, I think you need him to kind of get a few minutes, get him going, because he didn't really play. I think he played a bit against Newcastle, but didn't really get up to the speed. So I think, definitely give him a start. And with Gravenberch, I'm just excited to see him play. So yeah.
Elliot's been fantastic in his cameos, hasn't he? So yeah, Jay, I'm just talking about Thursday night. You've already said Elliot to start, but Race, what do you think? Do you agree with my three, or do you think there should be someone else coming in? Bajcetic is possibly available, but not ready to start just yet.
I'd say Endo, kind of in that number 6, and Elliot. And I don't think I would disagree with Gravenberch going in there. I think I'd probably lean towards McAllister, because I think I want to see. Yeah, I want to see him, kind of in what the role we want to see him in, not playing as a 6, playing more up the field. So I kind of want to, that's kind of what I want to see. What Klopp wants to do. That's kind of what I'm doing. This is what I want to see. So yeah, I want to see McAllister, and then have Endo kind of have that natural number 6. Then Elliot, just because he's been, so bright for us, coming off the bench. So I just kind of want to see him get a little more minutes. I would say though, I definitely want to see Gravenberch in this game. Hopefully we'll have a lead in the second half, can bring him in and whatnot. But even if not, I'd still like to see him, get into this side and get minutes, because then, it's kind of when talking about lineups, you kind of predict, what the next few games are, and you're looking ahead. So, I see that, the League Cup game next week. Of course, we have the Premier League this weekend. So, that League Cup game is where I would kind of have Gravenberch as his full debut there. But certainly want to see him involved on Thursday.
Yeah. I mean, with McAllister, he already kind of seems to have like a really good personal relationship with Klopp. We saw the picture, didn't we, on where McAllister was sitting next to Klopp in the dugout at Wolves, and Klopp's hand was on his knee. I think there's a lot of trust there, isn't there? I think I've already kind of mentioned it about the responsibility that McAllister and Szoboszlai have already taken on. McAllister come in and played games from the start. I think Klopp has taken a liking to him. But Naeem, what do you think about the starting three? You've had a little bit longer than the other two guys, so you need to make a decent effort. Yeah.
I was trying to think of a way to be contrarian, but quite frankly, I mean, the logistics supports it would be it has to be, I think, Endo to get him reintegrated into the squad, sort of, give him some more minutes, because he's been sort of out of favour recently. I would really like to see Bajcetic, but then again, you have to think about, is he going to be in a left-sided 8 role, or is that sort of belonging to Gravenberch?
Gravenberch, we need to get it right. We worked so hard to get Szoboszlai on, wrapped. We'll get Gravenberch. That's it. Just keep repeating yourself. You get it right.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Elliot also deserves a start. It's for reintegration purposes, for the betterment of the season. I'm gonna have to go with the general consensus. I think it should be Gravenberch, Endo, and Elliot.
Yeah, I think what we've already kind of spoken about is other options, aren't they? We've got loads of options in that midfield. Suddenly, it felt like, we literally, we're playing with nothing, but suddenly we have lots of options and lots of formations. Different players can come in and play in different positions. We've already spoken there, Race, what you want. I 100% agree. That's actually a really good shout, isn't it, about allowing McAllister to play in his preferred position a little bit further up, where you can actually make that, more contribution, allow play, dictate play, etc. So yeah, that's a really, really good shout. So it's interesting. But yeah, that comes to the end of the topics. As always, I like to kind of throw out there a bit of a extra time, but there's only kind of one question that's coming in. I think it's quite interesting, actually. We could spend a little bit of time. If there's any more questions, by all means, do so. Before I do kind of speak about that, please subscribe to the channel. Just reminding you again about the Stars and Stripes and Anfield Nights stream later on this evening. Please, just if you can, give it a watch, give it a like. I'm sure it's going to be a great show. The one question that came in, have we covered Mikel Antonio's comments? So Antonio's come in on his podcast, a little bit brazen. He's spoken about how West Ham are going to finish higher than Liverpool this season. He doesn't think that we're as good as what we're making out to be. We've got the point on the board, but the play hasn't kind of really dictated the performance hasn't dictated the results. So Mahay, I'll kind of start off with you really quickly. Are you really bothered about Mikel Antonio's comments? Does it actually play into our favour and fire us up for the weekend?
I think so, and I think it's gonna, I mean, I don't really see the beef. Like, where did this start? Like, I don't know. It's I actually have a mate who's a West Ham fan, and I've talked to him a bit today actually about this whole thing, and he said, that Antonio's comments have probably done more. Have made the encounter on the weekend worse for them. It's going to be probably even worse than it was already going to be. So I'm actually curious to see. West Ham have defended quite well, but they're coming to Anfield, and yeah, I don't know. I think we're going to get, like, at least the crowd is going to be fired up and is going to be ready for Antonio especially. So I don't really see how coming into an Anfield match you're going to say something like that. But it was his choice at the end of the day. I think I remember a few seasons ago we had the match against Arsenal, and it was extremely cagey. It was close. It was kind of like that, and then at some point Arteta had a fight with Jurgen on the side, and
he woke up the Anfield crowd,
yeah.
And then suddenly it
He
just
scored
changed the game. Then yeah, totally agree.
So I don't know. I'm gonna keep an eye on Antonio on the weekend. I'm just curious to see what happens now.
Well, Virgil's back, isn't he? So you could definitely see how Konate is also back as well. So those two players have the ability to kind of see out Antonio. As good a player as he is, it's a bit silly, isn't it? Their race, those comments so soon to the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, fair play to West Ham. They've had a decent start to the season, certainly, but I'm not concerned about those Antonio. Good luck, West Ham. I mean, they were in a borderline relegation battle last season, and they scrapped to win the Conference League. And that chance of them, being the European champions with them in City, that was just doesn't make any sense. That was just embarrassing. You're not European champions. Relax, calm down. So, just maybe a little bulletin board material there for Liverpool. It's just be careful what you say, especially with Klopp and this team, and it's we'll be paying attention to Antonio, I guess, on Sunday.
Yeah, and then we'll end off tonight's stream with yourself there, Naheem, with some comments about Antonio, his comments. Do you have any thoughts about it, or are you bothered about it? Really, just silly, isn't it? Really, in all fairness.
Yeah, I'm not interested. It wasn't on my radar. I had no idea he'd even made these comments. I mean, hearing them now, it sounds like you could be lying to me. It's a questionable statement at best. Like you say, good luck in that endeavour. The best of luck to you. But I don't know. I don't know if I rate West Ham like that, especially with the loss of Rice. So and Lucas Paqueta was on his way out the door. But so we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, it's all kind of a bit of banter, isn't it? And we'll see what happens on the weekend. But yeah, so we're going to end off tonight's stream. It's been an absolute privilege to be joined by you guys tonight. Just kind of last thing, if you can subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, on anything that we've discussed today. If there's any further questions that you think you want to speak about in future streams, I'm more than happy to cover off those points as well. I'd like you to have a wonderful evening, wonderful day wherever you are in the world. And I'll catch you next week. Mahai, Race, Nahim, thank you for joining me tonight, and we'll speak to you soon.